Welcome back to another sewing tutorial. My name is Ann-Sophie and I'm the person behind Sewing with Solana, and today I want to teach you how to make some super cute summer pyjamas. I'm going to link the sewing pattern down below, and if you decide to purchase a sewing pattern, that would make me so happy. And you don't have to purchase the top and the bottom separately. If you buy the sewing pattern, they come together. And the pyjamas are like, how do you say, are made out of one simple tank top, and then we have some shorts. But I feel like the tank top you don't have to wear as a pyjama. You can also just wear it every day as an everyday tank top, which I have been doing a lot lately. And to follow this tutorial, you need some elastic that we're gonna then attach to the waistband of the short. So it just needs to fit around your waist. My elastic is 2 centimeters wide. You could also use 1 centimeter wide elastic. If you decide to use even wider elastic, you would have to add some length to the top of the shorts. And when it comes to fabric, if you want to, I would recommend you to use the same fabric, just because I feel like it's such a cute fabric, and the fabric and the design of the pyjamas, they go so well together. So I'm using Pointelle cotton jersey, which looks like this. It is stretchy, and if you decide to use different fabric, you would still have to make sure that your fabric is stretchy this direction, because if you think about it, when you put a tank top on, like, it needs to be stretchy this way so you can pull it over your head, and the same goes also for the shorts. It needs to go, like, the fabric and the sewing pattern needs to be cut so it's stretchy width-wise, if that makes sense. I'm going to show you once we cut it out. But yeah, here's the fabric I'm using. I got mine from Spotlight. I'm going to try and link it down below if I can find it online. Otherwise, you can get this fabric at so many different online stores, or even if you go into a fabric store. I love this. I feel like this fabric is one of my favorite fabrics because it's so soft, so comfortable, and I've also used it for a maxi skirt many times. I'm going to also link the sewing tutorial for the maxi skirt below. In the sewing tutorial, I'm using a different fabric, but if you want to make a maxi skirt in this fabric, I can highly recommend you to do that. Use the same fabric, use a different fabric, up to you. Just make sure that your fabric is stretchy. And now we need to start putting the sewing pattern together. When you print your sewing pattern out, I printed mine out in A4, and which means there's always a lot of confusion. If your paper size is A4, you have to print the A4 paper. If you're in the US, you should print the US letter file and then use the US letter paper size. Or you can also print it in A0, which will save you a lot of time. But here, the copy shop that is close to mine, it is really expensive printing it in A0. So yeah, I just printed it in A4. I'm going to show you now how to put the sewing pattern together. Then we cut it out. Then I'm going to show you how to cut out the fabric correctly. And then we can start sewing. And also, I'm going to be mainly using my overlock machine. In my opinion, when working with stretchy fabric and jersey fabric, it is easier working with an overlock machine. But if you don't have one, you could still follow this tutorial. You would probably just have to maybe change your needle to a jersey needle. And every time when I start a new sewing project, I also just play around with my sewing machine a bit I first take some scrap fabric and then play around with the sewing machine to get the tension right. And also you could then figure out, if you work with your normal sewing machine, if it's easier using a straight stitch and just making the stitch length a bit longer, or maybe it's better for your fabric and your machine to use a zigzag stitch. Yeah, just every sewing machine is so different, so just play around with your sewing machine a bit. So again, I'm going to be using mainly my overlock machine, but you could also do this with your normal sewing machine. So here's our sewing pattern, and each page has a letter and a number on it. My ink started to fade a little bit as we got to the front, but it doesn't matter. So here is A1, you can see it very lightly, I don't know if you can see it on camera, but we always start with A1, then comes A2, then comes A3, so all the A's go in one column line, I guess, and then so A1, A2, A3, and so on, B1, B2, B3, and so on. And the way you put the pages together, you take the first page, then you take the second page, and you put it right where the dotted line down here is. Put it right here. And then also the dotted lines here on the sides need to line up. And then here we have A1, and here next to it we put B1. And again, you put B1 on top of A1, right where the dotted line here is. And then these dotted lines also need to line up. So I always first put all the pages in order, and then I go step by step, gluing each page together. So here we have A1, A2, A3, B1, B2, B3, B4, B5 and B6, C1, C2, C3, C4, 5, 6. And we don't have D1 or D2, so they're just no pages printing. And then it continues with D3, D4, D5 and D6. And now we can start gluing all the pages together. Okay, so now we have cut out our sewing pattern. You need to have the front of the shorts, and you need to cut them out 2 times. The back of the shorts, you also need to cut out the fabric twice. Then we have the front of the top, which needs to be cut out once, but you need to fold the fabric in half. And the same goes for the back of the top. You also need to cut it out once and also fold the fabric in half. And one thing I want to say, some of you tell me that my sewing patterns are sometimes a bit too short, which I hear you, but I really like my dresses and everything a bit shorter. I don't know, that's just how I like it. And also I posted a photo of the pyjamas when I was still in my old studio in the stories, and those pyjamas are also shorter than the ones we are making now. I made the top a few centimeters longer, and also I made the shorts a few centimeters longer. But later on in the video I'm going to show you how you can make it shorter, because one thing I did differently for the shorts now for the sewing pattern, they're straight. I really like it when they're shorter and when they're cut at an angle, when the sides of the shorts are a bit shorter. But because I always tell you it's always better to make it longer at the beginning, and it's easier to just make them shorter later on, so I think I should stick to it a bit more and practice what I preach. So I'm gonna follow the tutorial now. I'm gonna insert a photo here what they look like following the tutorial, and then here's a photo of what they look like if you want to make them shorter later on. So yeah, just so you know that if you want to, you could also skip towards the end of the video where I show you how many centimeters I'm taking away, and then you can come back to where we are now and follow the tutorial. But yeah, now it's time to start cutting out the fabric, and then we can start sewing, so let's go. So here's the fabric again that I'm using, and it's not stretchy lengthwise, but across the width it is super stretchy. So just make sure whatever fabric you're working with that it's stretchy this direction. So I folded my fabric in half now, so now I have 2 layers of fabric in front of me, and I'm just gonna put the front of the shorts on here now, pin it in place, and then cut it out. And because the fabric is folded in half, so I have 2 layers, it's already like I'm cutting it out twice. And make sure that you cut it out so the fabric is stretchy this way. And here we have the front of the top. So you want to fold your fabric in half, and here's the folded edge. So here where it says fold on my sewing pattern, I need to place this part on the folded edge, pin it in place, and then cut it out. And you need to cut it out 1 time on fold. And it also here needs again be stretchy this way. And now I cut out the back 2 times, so I folded my fabric in half and pin it in place again, cut it out, and then I'm gonna cut also the back piece of the top out. I just put some orange linen on my table now, just because I felt like with the white table and the white fabric it was really hard to see what's going on. But I'm gonna start now with my shorts. I have the two back pieces of the shorts laying in front of me. As you can see, this side of the fabric is much nicer than this side. So this is considered the good side and this is the bad side. And you now want to put the 2 good sides facing each other. So you have the 2 back pieces of the shorts in front of you with the 2 good sides facing each other. And now we're gonna sew along here. And we're gonna do the same to the front of the shorts. Here we have the good side facing us. Then I take the second front piece and put it on top with the 2 good sides facing each other, and we're gonna sew along here. I just had a quick lunch break and I'm trying to eat less out and get less takeaway. So I bought a microwave a few weeks ago, and then I just was heating up some food, and I was sitting outside of my studio. There's a cafe next door and there's like this super nice seating area where I can sit down. And then 2 girls came up to me and they asked me where my blouse was from, because they said they really, really liked it. And then it's like, I think everyone who makes their own clothes and who loves sewing can relate to this, that there's no better feeling than when someone compliments you on a piece of clothing that you're wearing and you made it yourself. So yeah, this is the Lucy blouse. I just made it with long sleeves, so I think I just added 20 or 22 centimeters length to it. But yeah, it's always such a nice feeling, even though I always get super shy and I think I get super awkward, but it makes me so happy. So now I lay the front of the shorts in front of me with the good side facing me. And then I take the back of the shorts, put them on top with the good sides facing each other. So the bad side is facing me. Good sides are facing each other. And now what you want to do is you want to sew along here. Along here. And then you also want to sew the inside of the legs together. So first you need to make sure that the seams here are lining up. Then I stick a needle in it. And you sew along here. Next up is to cut your elastic. I already cut mine off. You just need to make sure that it fits around your waist. Don't make it too tight, don't make it too loose. Mine is, I think, 65 centimeters long. And that includes the seam allowance, because what we want to do now, we want to sew the two ends together. So I'm just gonna overlap them like this and sew over it a few times. You could either do it with a zigzag stitch or with a normal straight stitch, but then I would adjust the stitch length, like make it a bit longer. Now we want to divide our elastic in 4 equal parts. So the first thing I'm going to do here is what we have just sewn. So I'm going to fold it in half here. And then over here, I'm going to stick a needle in it. And now I'm going to match up the seam here and the needle. And then I'm going to stick a needle in here. And then I'm doing the same on the other side. And now we take our shorts and we're gonna focus on the top of the shorts. And what you want to do is you want to match every needle with one seam. So here, this is, I think, the seam of the back of the shorts. And I'm just gonna pin it in place, and you wanna make sure that the inside of the shorts are facing you. And then the other needle we put over here, pin those two together. And another one here. And then here, there was no needle in it, but it was where the seam is, where we sewed the two ends together. And then I'm taking a needle and pin it in place. And what we want to do now is we're gonna go back to our overlock machine and we're gonna sew the elastic onto the shorts. And while we sew, we need to stretch the elastic. Just make sure that you don't stretch the fabric. And I'm also gonna cut off the threads at the top of the shorts, because we're gonna remove the cutter, the scissor of the overlock machine, because we don't accidentally want to cut off any of the elastic. With my machine, I open it up, and then here is I don't know if it's called a scissor or a cutter or a knife. I think it's maybe called a knife. But yeah, I'm just gonna flip mine up. So now it's not gonna cut off any fabric while we sew. And then I can close it again and we can start sewing. And now it doesn't really matter where you start. Just start at any random point. And I'm pushing my fabric under here. And then you just start sewing, and while sewing you need to stretch your elastic. Always make sure that you take the needle out, because you really don't want the needle. Like with your normal sewing machine you can sew over needles, but not with your overlock machine. And now here where we started, I'm just gonna cut the thread off, and then I'm gonna sew over it for a few more centimeters, and then I'm just gonna sew out of it. And now I leave a few centimeters of thread on it, cut it off. And then I'm taking one of my big needles here that I always use to hide my overlock thread. So I'm just gonna push it through here. Take the end of the thread, put it through the hole, pull it out, and then you can cut the rest of the thread off. Because if you would cut it off straight over there, it would probably come undone again. And now we go to our normal sewing machine again, and I'm gonna set it to a straight stitch, and I make my stitch length to 3.5. And now what we want to do is we're gonna have the inside of the shorts facing us, and now we're gonna flip the elastic down, and then we're gonna sew along here. So while we sew, again, we need to stretch the elastic and just sew in one full circle. I always find it easy when I just very, very gently pull a bit on the fabric. And here is what it's gonna look like. So here we have the outside of the shorts, and then the inside will look like this. And now we're just gonna put them to the side for now. We're gonna hem them later because it's easier, because we need to change some settings of our overlock machine for hemming it. And we're first gonna work on the top so we can hem the top and the shorts in one go. So I'm just gonna put them to the side. And now we're gonna put the front of the top in front of us with the good side facing us. And then I take the back of the top, put it on top of it with the two good sides facing each other. And now we're gonna sew one of the shoulder parts together. So we're gonna sew along here, only on one side. The other side we're gonna leave open for now. One thing, we need to put the knife, cutter, whatever we wanna call it, down again. And now we want to simply overlock, like not sew anything together, but just overlock the raw edges of the neckline here. And then once we have done that, then we sew the other shoulder part together. Make sure again that the two good sides are facing each other. And once we have done that, we will then overlock the raw edges of the two armholes of this side and then also of the other side. Okay, so this is what it will look like. And now we need to sew the other shoulder part together. Just make sure that nothing gets twisted here. Two good sides are facing each other. Line it up and then sew it together. And now we just overlock the two raw edges of the two armholes. So it doesn't matter where you start, at the front or the back. Okay, so here is what it will look like. This is the inside. And here's the other armhole. This we're gonna hide later on, this thread here. But yeah, now we have overlocked the neckline and we have overlocked the armhole. And now we need to put the two good sides facing each other again. And we're gonna sew the side of the top closed. So we're gonna sew along here, and then we're also going to do exactly the same on the other side and sew along here. And now we can take our big needle again and hide all the overlock seams here. First I'm going to shorten it a bit. Then I push it through the seam we have sewn. And now we're going to go back to our normal sewing machine, and we have the inside of the shirt facing us. And what we need to do is, I would recommend starting at the back of the top, and we're going to fold the seam allowance inwards, and then we're going to sew with a zigzag stitch in a big circle. I'm just going to start with my neckline, and then we're going to do exactly the same to our armholes. We're going to fold the overlock seam inside, and then sew with a zigzag stitch all the way around. So my sewing machine is set to a zigzag stitch. The length I put to 2 and width I put to 4. And we have the inside of the top facing us, and I'm going to start at the back of the top at the neckline, and I'm just folding the seam allowance and a few extra millimeters towards the inside, and then I just start sewing and make sure you front and back stitch. And here it's always a bit hard because there's so many layers of fabric, so sometimes it helps just to lift the foot again. And when you lift the foot, I always make sure that my needle is down. So here's what it's gonna look like. And now we're gonna do exactly the same to our armholes. Okay, so now we are nearly finished. We only need to hem our top and hem our shorts. And I want us to make a letters hem because I feel like a letters hem looks so cute with the fabric and the design, and it just goes so well together. I posted a reel a couple of weeks ago where I taught you how to make a letters hem with your normal sewing machine. And I'm gonna link it down below, but to change things up a little bit, I want to teach you how to do it with your overlock machine today. If you don't have an overlock machine, just watch the other video. And also, I've only ever worked with Singer overlock machines. I'm using now a Singer heavy duty. So I am not 100% sure if this works on all overlock machines. You could always, like when I want to learn something about my sewing machine, I just type into YouTube the name of my machine and what I want to learn. And usually there's so many videos popping up. But yeah, I'm going to show you now how to do it with the overlock machine. And when I bought my machine, it came with this little thing, and we need this now. Okay, so the first thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna cut all threads off. I usually always only sew with one needle, so I always have 3 threads in here. And now I'm gonna start sewing to get all the thread out of my machine. Open it up. Then I move my foot up, and I always have my needle in the left one, so in the B, which is the blue one. But now I need to move it to the green one, which is A, so it's on the right side. So, and now I take this little thing here, and on my sewing machine there's also a photo that explains where it needs to go. And it needs to go on this thing, and I put it with this side, stick it on here, and then I need to put it behind so it comes through the little hole. And now I move this one over here, and now we need to thread the machine again, but this time we're only threading the yellow one and the green one, not the red one. So only this one here and this one, and we're just gonna thread them the same way we would not usually do it. I always take some tweezers because it helps me to thread it. And here there's like this little black wheel. Maybe if I close it, you can see it better. So here we have a black wheel, and then here you can see this thing. And when I move the black wheel, this thing here moves, and you want to make sure that it's in line with the line that goes to the R. So like this. Then my tension for the green one is at 4, and the tension of my yellow one I put to 8. And this thing down here I usually always have at 1, but now I'm gonna put it up to 0.7. And this is between 2 and F. And I'm just gonna start with my pants now. I'm just gonna start at any random point. Probably it's always nicer to do it at the back of the shorts. And you start at a random point, and then you go all the way around, and then you sew a few centimeters over it, and then we sew out again. And now usually we would always leave a few centimeters, but from my experience you can just cut it off right here. I've washed my skirts and my tops and my pyjama shorts so many times, and because the stitches are so close together, it's not gonna come undone again. Okay, so I finished hemming my pyjamas now, and I'm gonna show them to you now. So they're completely finished now. If you want to, you can leave them like this, or if you want to, you can then follow me and make them a bit shorter, just because I personally think it looks a bit cuter when my shorts and dress and everything is a little bit shorter, but that is completely up to you. So I'm now gonna make the top 4 centimeters shorter, just because I want it to be a bit more cropped. And then I'm gonna make the sides of my shorts 6 centimeters shorter, and the inside of the leg I'm only gonna make it 2 centimeters shorter, because then it will go at an angle out like this, which I think is super cute. So I'm gonna take them off again, cut off the fabric, and then I'm just gonna hem the top and the shorts again. Okay, so here I have the top now in front of me, and I tried to lay it as flat and evenly as possible. It is a bit hard with the letters hem here. I bought this pen because I don't like working with chalk, so I wanted to try this one out. It's apparently air erasable, so I guess it's supposed to disappear again after a while. But yeah, I'm just going to take a measuring tape now, and I'm going to measure 4 centimeters, make a few marks on my fabric. I hope it, oops, I already took it apart. I'm scared now that it's going to drop on my, whoa. Okay. So now I'm just going to cut this off. And then I'm gonna overlock it again with the letters hem style. And here we have the shorts. How do I do this? I also fold them in half. I'm just gonna do one leg first, and then I can do the other one. And now Where's my pen? Here. I'm gonna measure from the outside 6 centimeters, and then the inside I'm just gonna do, I think, 2 centimeters. And I'm just gonna draw a straight line on here now. So now that I've cut the top and also the shorts shorter, I'm gonna hem them with the letters hem style. It is a bit hard if you've already done the letters hem to then make them shorter, just because the ends are super uneven. So what I could recommend you to do otherwise is to try them on before you do the letters hem. Then figure out how long you want them to be, because when you do the letters hem, when you do it with your normal sewing machine, you don't cut any fabric off. If you do it with your overlock machine, you just cut a few millimeters off anyways. But I just wanted to do this, like do the letters hem to the original sewing pattern, just so I can show you the length of it if you just follow the sewing pattern. But yeah, just a little tip. If you want to figure out how long you want yours to be, and if maybe you want to make them shorter, try them on before you do the letters hem to them, because then it's easier cutting them shorter, easier and more straight. You know what I mean? More even? More even? Because then it's easier to shorten them more evenly. I think that sounds like better English. Okay, so here's what it looks like now that it's shortened. And I mean, I also liked it before, but I just feel like this is just a little bit more me. And I also really like how it's shorter here on the side and a bit longer on the middle. But yeah, we are finished now.